This is Castlevania Symphony of the Night, and I'm playing this on the Xbox Series console. I bought it on the Xbox Store, and it seemed it was originally ported for the 360, but I got the Series machine, and that's where I'm playing it. If you're an expert on this game already, this video probably won't do much for you, and I'll just reinforce what you already know. Symphony of the Night is great. It's a 2D masterpiece that has a ton of things to find, and there you go. If you have any tips, feel free to put them in the comments for me and others, because I've only beaten this, I think, twice, and I'm not an expert. So Symphony of the Night was originally released back in 1997 by Konami for the original PlayStation, the Sega Saturn, and the PSP. It eventually got migrated to other consoles, and if you like Castlevania, I think this is worth your time. There's also apparently an Ultimate Saturn version that was fan-patched, but I've not drifted into checking that one out yet. I recall this game being relatively overlooked when it first came out. At the time, people were really focused on the 3D games of the PlayStation, so a game primarily in 2D didn't catch many eyes, and it really should have. I think this is where the term Metroidvania may have originated, because it's sort of a cross between the two games. So I got this on the Xbox Store, and I didn't do any research before I started playing. I just saw someone mention it, that it was really good, and I wanted to jump in blind. It really took me 4 or 5 hours of grinding before I felt like I needed any direction whatsoever. And eventually I did beat it, and I watched the credits roll. It plays similar enough to the original games, and has enough new features where it really feels like it's doing something really great. Some differences from the original Castlevania. You don't play with a whip, but you do have a special weapon you can pick up along the way, and you can swap it out. Some are actually the same as the original game, like the throwing knife or the holy vial, the stopwatch, and the axe. But there are a few more, and I think my favorite is this Holy Bible, and it spins around you for a few seconds. Most of these secondary weapons have places that they're really effective, but honestly, I found myself relying on them less and less as the end of the game approached. You also have an inventory, and the ability to equip a weapon or item in each hand. You can equip a piece of armor, a mask, or eyewear, and you have a couple of slots for jewelry. You have statistics, and that's related to attack, defense, and you gain experience along the way. You gain levels, and you learn, and you can use magic, too. You can also unlock familiars, and they follow you around, and they give you these bonuses as you go. With all this added variety, it gives you a lot more latitude to play the game that you want to play. Personally, I tend to not use a lot of magic, and I certainly have my preferred weapons. But being able to level and get stronger along the way is really great for feeling a sense of accomplishment, and the creatures that were really difficult early on, they certainly become easier along the way as you start to beef up your prowess. As far as the enemies go, we get plenty of creatures that are just like the original, and it's really nice to see them here. The zombies, skeletons, Medusa heads, these are all fan service. But that's only some of the enemies you face. There are tons of newer monsters kicking around the castle, and the bosses are really large and imposing. And there's definitely a sense of satisfaction when you take one down. When I beat the final boss and the credits were rolling, I was certainly pleased that I made it this far through. I played the original Castlevania on the NES a ton when I was younger. I made it all the way through to Dracula. Although I'm not sure I ever beat its final form, so seeing the credits roll here felt great. You get a plot, of course. You play Alucard, who is Dracula's half-human son, and your mission is to destroy the castle and put an end to all this monster carnage. I guess it seems simple enough. But it's really not about the story here for me as much as it is for the platform play. Figuring out the right path, the timing, and getting strong enough to advance. The map is fairly large, and there's a sizable amount of unlocks here. You can get through the entire game without unlocking some areas, really. And after completing the game, I had a bunch of unused items in relic slots. I didn't consider it a very hard experience, but it did take some time. And when I did die, it was usually a result of me not paying attention to my status, and I left health items unused. But then after I finished, I went online and started looking around to see what I missed. And this is where the game went from good to great. It turns out I unlocked only one ending of a possible 4, but I did have a save game right before the end boss, so I loaded it back up, and I completed the boss fight again, but in a different way. This changed the game and the experience significantly. Suddenly the game wasn't over and the credits weren't rolling. Instead, I started basically a completely unexplored map. And the map was basically an inverted copy of the castle map that you just cleared. So we have to explore the whole thing over again, upside down. which creates totally different obstacles. The difficulty for what was basically a second playthrough is so much different. Rooms you were walking through before with no problem are now filled with new creatures. They have different attacks maybe, and a totally different damage output. I also learned that I really didn't unlock much of anything in my initial play. There's so many more relics, weapons, and armors to find. I also started to level up much faster with the higher experience, which was nice, and it was really needed. The weapons here, actually, I found more, and they became more exciting in a lot of ways. Now, some of these you just find, while others are actually random drops from specific enemies, and that's one of the things I had trouble getting my brain around. This game came out in 1997, and the internet was in its early days. How did people find out about these random drops? You have to be really lucky in some cases, because there are only a few monsters that might do this, but in a couple of cases, I had to refresh and kill 20 or 30 creatures before I got the drop. And the only reason I knew it was there was because somebody published a video and explained where you need to go. Back in the day, this information would have been a lot harder to find. And knowing where to get these better weapons, it's really useful, because this upside-down castle is a total slap of truth. You get killed much easier. The first castle map, by the end of it, you're probably going to be pretty confident on how to get through it, because you've been through it so many times, and you know what's coming. But this inverted castle, you have to play it different. You got to be more cautious. I found my health dropping really fast early on, and even some of the basic creatures were causing some serious problems. Some areas really pile on enemies too, and you can get overwhelmed pretty quick, and that actually becomes the norm for some areas. The moral of the story at this point is to save the game every time you find a new save spot. If you walk past an existing save point, or if you find a new weapon or item, stop. Go for that save spot and save it. Don't push your luck. The game gets a little easier as you continue to level, of course, but the grind is certainly elevated. When you make it to this second castle map, it's also a good time to do some research on weapons. You need to find the good stuff, because some weapons make the harder stuff not quite as hard. For me, Symphony of the Night was a good nostalgic sort of game that became great the deeper you got into it. And it makes me want to go back and work on some of the other Castlevania 2D games that I've not finished. I think it might be worth taking a look at that Saturn version as well. I heard that there are some additional things that they put in specifically for that version, and that fan patch fixes some of the little frustrations people experienced in the release version. One additional thing for the hardcore players, if you create a new game and use the name Richter for your save file, that's one of the Castlevania characters, it lets you play the whole game again with that character. Then you get to use the whip, and he has totally different game mechanics. I think that's pretty great. It's like a completely new game with a new gameplay style. Well, that's all I have today for Castlevania Symphony of the Night. What a great platformer. Thank you for stopping by to take a look, and I hope to catch you on another video.